Have you ever felt pressure to explain yourself to someone who wasn't in the room when you received your assignment? To perform your calling for an audience that didn't hear the instructions? To prove your legitimacy to someone whose approval was never part of the plan? Stay with that, because what I'm about to say may give you permission to put something down that you were never meant to carry. Hello, welcome back. I'm Tiffany, the Valiant Coach, a U.S. Air Force veteran, a certified integrative somatic trauma informed practitioner, and I walk with Black women into the healing their bodies have been waiting for. We are in week 4 of Stop, Look, Listen. In this week, we're talking about confidence, not the kind that needs the room's applause to sustain itself, the kind that stands quietly in front of the most powerful person in the room and defines its own purpose on its own terms. We have spent the last 3 weeks establishing something important. Week 1, humility that doesn't shrink. You can be rooted without being rigid. Week 2, wisdom about the system. You can see Caesar clearly without being owned by him. Week 3, knowing your authority. Your identity has an unconditional baseline that no institution issued and no exit can revoke. This week, the question becomes, what does it look like to move from that place? Not performing, not proving, not managing how you are perceived by the people who were never in the room when your assignment was given. Just confident, rooted, executing what you were sent to do. In John 18, Yeshua is standing before Pilate, the Roman governor, the most powerful earthly authority in the room, a man with the legal authority to release him or execute him. Pilate asks, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And eventually Yeshua says, "You say that I am a king. For this purpose I was born, for this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." I want you to notice he did what he did not do. He did not perform for Pilate. He did not manage Pilate's perception of him. He did not try to make Pilate understand, agree, or validate what he had come to do. He simply stated his purpose clearly on his own terms. Pilate had the power to decide his fate, and Yeshua stood before him without performing for the power. Not defiantly, not arrogantly, with the settled confidence of someone who already knew why he was there and who had sent him. That is confidence without performance. And what made it possible was something that had happened long before that courtroom. A private encounter, a specific calling, instructions that were given directly and personally. Pilate was not even in the room for that, which meant Pilate's understanding or lack of it was never the measure of its validity. This is the piece I want to sit with because I think it carries the most practical weight for where many of you are right now. When Yahweh gives an assignment, the instructions are personal. Think about the angel and Mary. Gabriel appeared to her, not to the community, not to the religious establishment, not to Joseph initially. The instruction was specific. The vision was specific. The calling specific to her life, her body, and her yes, which meant that the people around her were not going to immediately understand what she was carrying. They couldn't. They weren't in the room. Think about Moses at the burning bush. He was on the backside of the wilderness, tending someone else's sheep, when Yahweh appeared to him specifically with a specific mission, a specific people, a specific moment in history. He couldn't transfer that encounter to someone else. He couldn't make anyone else feel the urgency of what he had received. He could only obey what was given to him. Here's the practical implication. If your calling came through a personal encounter with Yahweh, and most genuine callings do, then the people around you will not always have this context to understand your urgency, your direction, or your pace. They weren't there. That does not make your assignment less real. It does not mean that you are mistaken. It means that the validation for what you carry was never meant to come from them. Think of it this way. When specific instructions are issued for a specific mission, not everyone in the building receives those orders. The instruction belongs to the person they were given to, and that person is accountable to execute the mission, not to convince everyone else in the building that the mission is valid. You don't answer the building. You answer to the one who issued the orders. Now, I want to bring this into a space that many of you navigate daily. In professional environments, and this is something I observe constantly in my work with Black women, there is often an unspoken expectation that goes beyond the job's description. It is not written in the contract. It is not in the performance review criteria, but it is present and it is costly. Perform your loyalty. Demonstrate visibly, consistently, repeatedly that you are committed enough, compliant enough, grateful enough for your place at the table. Go beyond what is required. Take on what others decline. Be available in ways that are not reciprocated. And do it without complaints, because complaints will be read as ingratitude or insubordination. This is the performance track, and it is exhausting in ways that compound over time because it's not just physical labor. It is a labor of constantly managing how you are perceived, constantly calibrating your behavior to someone else's comfort, constantly proving something that should never have to be in question. Your nervous system was not designed to sustain that. No one's was. And here is the thing. If you're operating from God's given calling, if you know your assignment, you know your skills, and you know who sent you, you do not need to perform loyalty to a system that may not reciprocate it. You can do excellent work. You can show up fully. You can give your best, but you do so from your calling, not from the anxiety of needing their approval to feel legitimate. Competence rooted in calling does not perform for power. It simply stands. It simply works. It does not need the powerful to agree in order to keep moving. Here's what performance anxiety does to the body. It keeps the nervous system in a low-grade state of audition, always scanning for approval, signals, always preparing for the possibility of rejection, always calibrating. Am I doing enough? Am I being enough? Do they see my value? That is not presence. That's surveillance. And a body that is constantly auditioning cannot access the full depth of what it carries. The creativity, the discernment, the wisdom, the genuine confidence. Those things require a nervous system that is regulated, not performing. The stop of this series is not just a spiritual practice, it's a physiological one. When you stop performing, when you release the next need to make people understand what Yahweh gave you specifically, your body gets to exhale. And in that exhale, there is often access to a quality of presence and authority that no amount of performance could have produced. You don't have to earn your place through exhaustion. Your orders were already issued. Your assignment is already real. Your calling does not require their applause to be valid. Yeshua stood before Pilate and defined his own purpose on his own terms, not because he was dismissive of Pilate's authority, but because he knew that Pilate's understanding was never the measure of his calling. The same is true for you. The people who don't understand your urgency, they weren't in the room when you received your assignment. The institution that keeps asking you to prove your loyalty, it was not present at the encounter that defined your purpose. You don't owe them a performance. You owe Yahweh obedience. So stop auditioning, stop managing, stop performing calm for an audience that was never meant to be your measure. You know your orders. You know who issued them. Go do what you were sent to do. Drop a dove in the comments if this gave you permission to put something down today. And share this with a woman who has been performing for a room that was never qualified to evaluate her. I love you with the love of the Lord, and hopefully I will see you next week. Be blessed.